Hi everybody. So I wanted to make a very different video today. I want to talk about in Canada right now. Today is Bell Let's Talk Day, which is very close to my heart because it's all about spreading awareness about mental illness. And for people that struggle with mental illness, it can kind of be like an invisible illness. It's something that you can't see. It's something that you can't, kind of like put a label on, I guess. And a lot of people don't acknowledge it. They don't know how to treat somebody that has a mental illness. They don't know how to get help themselves when they have a mental illness. And I kind of just wanted to talk about it for a minute because it's something that's really close to my heart. I have gone to therapy. I have been on medication. I have struggled for a very long time with mental illness, specifically anxiety and depression, postpartum depression. They are not things that can be taken lightly. They're not things that are just, part of somebody's life and they don't have any impact. So I kind of wanted to let you guys into what it's like a little bit to live with a mental illness or to struggle with anxiety or depression. And for me, I didn't really acknowledge my anxiety disorder until I didn't have any other option. I knew that my fears and my worries were not normal growing up. I knew that, staying up really, really late at night, I would literally sit in front of my television and I would watch TV and just have it on until I fell asleep because I was afraid of going to bed. I was afraid of dying in my sleep. I was afraid of somebody breaking into my house. I was afraid of pretty much anything bad that could go wrong. That's what I was afraid of. And I would constantly worry about these things. So even as a kid, I would just sit and I would read or I would do I would distract my mind to the point of exhaustion and I would just fall asleep without knowing. And then that continued throughout, all of my life, all of high school. And then when I had my girls, when I had Sophie, my oldest, I didn't really have any issues with postpartum depression. But I did see an increase in my anxiety because now I wasn't just worrying about myself. I was worrying about this tiny body and I worried about, anything, like literally anything on the planet that could go wrong, I thought was going to happen. And then when I had Zoe, I struggled with depression during my pregnancy as well as after. During my pregnancy, it was actually kind of scary. There was about a month, maybe 6 weeks that I didn't leave my room. I would get up sometimes. I didn't really eat much. I didn't take care of myself. I probably spent 10 to 14 days in like the same pair of pajamas. I didn't do anything and I didn't want to get help. I didn't want to acknowledge that, this is what I was dealing with because I always felt like somebody was going to judge me. Somebody was going to say something and then tell me that there was something wrong with me. So I didn't want to acknowledge it. It was pretty much one of those things that was just like between my husband and I. And then fast forward to having her, that, turned into postpartum depression and it turned into all kinds of other things. And my anxiety became unbearable. I couldn't sleep. I would wake up having night terrors. I would be so panicked that I couldn't breathe. It rocked my entire life. It was at that point that I started to talk a little bit more to my doctor about it. I was on depression medication after I had Zoe, and then I started to feel a little bit better. And then shortly after, I got pregnant with Aubrey, and that pregnancy went pretty well. I wasn't, my moods were pretty normal, and normal for me is pretty anxious, but the depression wasn't there anymore. And then once I had Aubrey, or nearing actually my delivery of Aubrey, my anxiety disorder took off. It was something that I never anticipated. I'd kind of always been in this like, worry wart kind of mentality. Like that's what I was. I was just going to have to deal with it. And I wasn't really acknowledging that it was an anxiety disorder. And it was affecting my relationships. It was affecting my parenting. It was affecting, my belief in myself. It was affecting all of these aspects of my life. And I kind of felt like I was in this like dark tunnel and I could never get out. And just before leading up to having her, I had 3 C-sections with all of my girls. And the more C-sections that you have an increased risk of complications, of all of these things, like any surgery. And as I was nearing my scheduled C-section date, I couldn't sleep at all. I was not sleeping. I was not eating. I was not doing anything. I would have probably 2 to 5 anxiety attacks every day because I thought that I was going to die. I thought that I was going to go into surgery and I was not going to get to meet my baby girl. And they actually had to give me anxiety medication as I was going into surgery because I couldn't handle it. I couldn't go through with it, but I didn't want to be put under and I wanted to, be there to experience it at all, but I needed something to bring me back. And that was kind of my breaking point. It was kind of where I was like, you know what, like this is something that I really need to take, I need to take care of. And it was really controlling my life. So I started to go to therapy shortly after I had Aubrey because my anxiety was out of control and I started to develop more of a postpartum depression and I didn't want to get out of bed and I didn't want to do anything with friends and I didn't want to talk to anybody and I didn't want to get dressed and I literally had to remove myself from my bedroom because otherwise it was just going to be like I was like magnetized and I was just going to end up there. And that's kind of the way that depression is. It kind of like sucks the life out of you. And if you've never dealt with that before, it can be really hard for somebody to explain or, you to understand because it isn't something like a broken leg or it isn't something like cancer or, it's a very different kind of illness. It's a very different kind of medical issue. And it's something that people don't take as seriously as they should. Sweetheart, don't do that, please. That's dangerous. No, don't do that, please. Sorry. And then I, talked to my doctors. And when I got therapy, it ended up being that they went, like therapists do, they ask all kinds of questions and they try to find out more about you and, what has your life been like and where did you come from and all of these things that have happened. And we narrowed my anxiety down to one event, one single event in my entire life. And that is what started my anxiety disorder. And that was a break-in when I was little. When I was little, I was about 4, around 4, maybe 5. And my house was broken into. It was just my mom and I. My mom was 8 months pregnant. And I was alone in my closet in the dark while this man was in my house. And I could hear my mom screaming and throwing things. And I can still, when I think about it, I can still picture little me in the closet. I can still picture little me. It's as if I'm sitting beside myself. And then we started to make sense of, this is why I'm afraid of the dark. And this is why I can't, go out at night. And this is why I don't like to be home alone. And this is why I have a hard time sleeping. And we started to piece all of these puzzles together because it's not always just, oh, well, I have an anxiety disorder or, oh, well, I feel depressed or, there's all these things that it's hard for us to talk about or it's hard for us to acknowledge because we put it so far back in our minds. And it really takes that, first step of talking to somebody, just somebody. It doesn't have to be anybody in particular. It just has to be someone else and seeking that help. And since I've done that, I've been able to find different outlets, different ways to deal with my anxiety disorder. Thankfully, I have been able to stay off of medication, and I've been able to, find other ways. Exercise is the best thing that you can do for a mental illness, for depression and anxiety. It is incredible. It is an incredible outlet. It releases so many happy hormones and endorphins and all of these things into our bodies that help us increase our mood and our energy, and it's something that your body needs. And I didn't realize that, and I kind of thought that it was just one of those things that people say, but it's true. It really does make a difference, and it has, for me, it's made a world of a difference. I share all of this because if even a little piece of that story, of those little tidbits of my life, and my struggles with anxiety and depression, if they trigger something in you, or maybe you're dealing with postpartum depression right now and you don't know what to do or who to talk to. If you don't have anybody, sweetie, can you turn that off for a second, please? Turn it off for a second. If you don't have anybody to go to or to talk to, or you just need, an ear that is outside of your, little bubble of people, I would love to just listen and be there to help you. So I hope that this kind of lets other people know that they don't have to struggle alone. They don't have to live in fear. They don't have to be silent. All it takes is learning and being willing to acknowledge that mental illness is a thing. And if you don't struggle with a mental illness, but you know somebody that does, try to look at it from their perspective, because it can be very hard to explain. I know for myself, it's incredibly difficult to explain how I feel in those moments, because I feel paralyzed. I feel crippled by my anxiety attack or anything else. Hang on a second. That's going on. So never feel alone. Never feel like there's something wrong with you. Never feel like you are trapped forever, because there are always ways to get out there and to talk about things. But that first step is difficult. But I'm going to tell you, it is worth it. And it took me a long time to acknowledge and to do. But I hope that this helps at least one person, because I know how tough it is. Hope you guys are having a great day. I just wanted to bring awareness to that. Bye, guys.